Angel fans, there are some cynical Halo fans that might think that the Angels don't have anyone of value to trade, but that's actually not true according to the reporting out there. So, which players have value and why are they so valued? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, I've been enjoying, speaking of Halo Bros, I've been enjoying that new Mario Brothers game, Mario Brothers Wonder. Have you played that one?
I have played that one. I'm Yoshi, and because, well, Yoshi doesn't take damage, and so that's why I'm Yoshi.
You're using a baby character. That's what you're doing.
I'm the terrible Nintendo player that I never thought I'd be, but unfortunately, I'm confessing that on the show today.
Well, that's what happens when you get older, I guess. Hey, listen,
watch it.
We've been fans of this team for years. It's our second off season here with you at Locked On Angels. 2 show notes. We're dropping episodes today. We dropped one yesterday, and we'll drop one tomorrow on Friday. And we'll do the same thing next week because of the holiday, the New Year's holiday. We'll be here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Then we'll be back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday after that. And we'll be doing 3 episodes a week up until right before spring training. And our second show note is that Locked On Angels has been nominated for the 2024 Sports Podcast Awards. In fact, we got nominated for Best Baseball Podcast. Mike, there's some big names, other contenders in that one. So yeah, we hope that you'll show your support for the Halo Bros. Just a quick way to say thanks for suffering through this team and doing a 30-minute show every day. That would be the best way to say thank you if you just gave us the vote there. That, of course, that link is in the episode description below. On today's show, the Angels are drawing interest from around the league. Which ones are they? Well, there's a couple of players, according to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. There's 5 players, in fact, that are getting interest from rival clubs. And we're going to talk about each one and which ones bring a lot to the table and what they might bring back in return. Mike, let's get it started with Luis Rengifo.
Yeah, a name that I think a lot of people would go, really? But when you look at Rengifo and what's being talked about when they talk about Rengifo, it may change your mind. Rosenthal said that Rengifo is a very quality piece for a lot of teams. He's a switch hitter who's played 6 different positions last season. Rengifo's 960 OPS after the All-Star game was the 17th highest in the majors, wow. Johnny. And he will play next season at age 27, still under club control for 2 years. So that's what Ken Rosenthal says. What do the Super Halo Brothers say, Johnny?
Well, we say that Rengifo is someone that we both feel benefits from having consistent playing time. A whole lot of people feel like he's only a hot hitter in the summer when the games don't matter. And that might be true if you looked at it from way zoomed out. But the truth is, Mike, I discussed this on our Quick Hits episode last week. Rengifo is not getting consistent at-bats at the beginning of the season because the full roster is there. But by the time the summertime comes around, Anthony Rendon drops off and Trout's hurt, so you need to move some outfielders around. So then you get Rengifo in the outfield, you get him at third base, you get him at second so Drury can play first, right? There's a lot of injuries that occur, and that's the moment that Rengifo actually gets consistent playing time.
I feel like this is your modern day CJ Wilson argument, right? Yep. I feel like there are, and so for those that don't know, John, big fan of CJ Wilson, so am I. A lot of people lump him into a really terrible signing, but he had some good years with the Halos. The Halos weren't really good when he was on the team. And same thing with Rengifo. When he gets consistent playing time and gets consistent at bats, Johnny, he's pretty successful. In fact, July of 2023, he was getting into games every single day. Look at those numbers, John. They're pretty impressive. Share those with us.
Yeah, in July, he had a .315 batting average, a .398 on base. Mike, that's the big thing about Rengifo in 2023. Took a lot more walks.
He did
this season, which was a vast improvement over 22. A .671 slugging percentage and a 1,069 nice OPS in July.
That's wild.
Then in August, he had a .327 batting average, a .391 on base percentage, of .520 slugging, and a .911 OPS. Mike, baseball trade values puts Luis Rengifo at a surplus value. That's taking in how many years of control there is, his injury risk, his ability to play all over the field. They give him a 13.7. And for reference, I looked this up. Jonathan India of the Reds has a surplus value of 12.6.
Wow.
And he's got 3 years of arbitration left. So it seems like Rengifo has drawn all kinds of trade interest. Mike, is now the time to sell high on Rengifo, or does he deserve or even have a chance to have a full-time role on this team?
There are a lot of questions about where he's going to play, right? And I saw a whole narrative from some of the talking heads in baseball media that were saying that maybe Drury is going to be somebody that sort of floats around. And I don't think that that's what you do with Brandon Drury this year. I think that you allow him to play because the dude had an excellent season last year, even with all of the injuries. And because of that, I think Rengifo can be somebody that's expendable. However, if you're going to make a trade and you're going to sell high, my opinion, my baseball fandom says, I think that you trade Drury and sell high on him because he's got 1 year left, right? And you keep Rengifo because he's got 2 years remaining under club control. He's a switch hitter and can play pretty much anywhere and has played some outfield. Now, if they're going to keep Drury, then I would consider trading Rengifo. I would just want something back, John. I would want something of quality back. And I know that we've talked about Burns and Cease as two potential pitchers that the Angels could trade for. The problem is that both of those guys have 1 year left on their contracts.
Right.
And all indications are that the White Sox are demanding a very high price for Dylan Cease.
Yeah.
And so it's not just going to be Rengifo. It might be some other pieces that would have to go along with him. And I don't think that the Angels can afford, based on their depth, getting rid of a lot of pieces to go and get somebody. So if you had to pin me up against the wall, I'm going to say I would rather keep Rengifo over Drury. But if we trade Rengifo, I would want to get something of quality back, Burns or Cease, and then maybe do what they did with Glasnow and the Dodgers, have them sign an extended contract so that we can get some quality, not just well, I guess quality and quantity from somebody, not just like, hey, 1 year and then we're moving on, because that doesn't seem to be helpful.
It's got to have an extension tied to it. There has to be a way to get it done. And we saw the Dodgers do it with Glasnow for two guys that, are decent guys, but remember the Dodgers also got Manuel Margot back in that trade as well. So I think if you package Rengifo with somebody else, that's a deal that can get it done. I know what everybody's going to say. Rengifo is not going to get it done. Right. Add in somebody else to that.
Sure.
And get an arm back in return, and you might be able to get it done. Mike, another arm, Jose Suarez, has been discussed. Ken Rosenthal says the Angels ranked 6th in the rotation ERA before falling to 19th last season. Most of their starters are young and talented enough to still pique the interest of rival clubs. Suarez, who's 26, had a 3.86 ERA in 207 1/3 innings in 2021 to 2022, before missing more than 4 months with a strained shoulder last season. He's under club control for 3 more years. Mike, what do the Super Halo Bros say about Jose Suarez?
Jose's always seemed like the better relief pitcher rather than a starter, right? And in 58 games as a starter, he has 268 2/3 innings pitched, an ERA of 5.69, and then in 19 games as a reliever, 55 2/3 innings pitched with a 3.88 ERA. Johnny, baseball trade values gives Suarez a 5.1 surplus value, as you've already shared. It covers a lot of things, including the club control and his age and all of those things. Best comparison that we found was Johnny Brito from the Padres, who was a part of the Juan Soto deal. He has a surplus value of 4.9. So, Johnny, Angels have used Suarez as the 6th man in that rotation when they've needed somebody to come up and pitch in that spot. They've given him full-time turns in the rotation in 2021 and 2022. Do you think that it's time to sell high, or is this the highest point that we can sell Suarez right now to another team?
If there's interest coming for Jose Suarez, then I say trade, Mike.
Yeah.
They've got Kenny Rosenberg and Davis Daniel as the depth pieces, who, in my opinion, are much more intriguing than Jose Suarez, because we've seen all that Jose Suarez has to offer. Can he get better? I'm sure he can get better. He's had flashes of really great pitching there every now and then, but I'm just over the Jose Suarez experiment that we've been doing the last 2 years. He's not a part of a championship team, and not that this team is destined for the playoffs or anything, but if there's actual interest in Jose Suarez, I say you move him, try to get whatever you can get back, even if it's like a couple of single A guys that people are pretty high about. I mean, if there's interest and there's intrigue and there's any value at all for Jose Suarez, you make that move 100% of the time, Mike. And again, I'd rather see Kenny Rosenberg and Davis Daniel get chances at the rotation over Jose Suarez again. What about you?
I agree, because Suarez is a lefty and the Angels are just really lefty dominated.
That's another factor.
Right? And so having maybe a Davis Daniel instead of a Jose Suarez that could come in and pitch and fill in, I think would be much better for this team. And I think it would make it more palatable if the Angels did, say, sign like a Blake Snell or something along those lines,
for sure.
right? And then they could trade a Suarez, maybe even trade like a Sandoval and get some good pieces back as well. But I think you got to focus on his abilities in the bullpen. And right now, I guess if the Angels wanted to put him there, they could, but it just seems like they're trying to like, well, I guess we can make this work, or, well, I guess we can make that work. I would say sell, and sell high if he's being looked at as somebody that other teams would love to have on their team.
Hey, we appreciate you making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're just getting started here. Got 3 more trade candidates that are drawing interest from rival teams for the Angels. Who would you be willing to part with? Ward, Moniak, or Matt Thaiss? Well, we're going to get into all of that coming right up.
It's football season, really like the important part of football season, not just in the college football realm, but also in the NFL. And you can get your eyes really glued to the screen, and not just because you're rooting for your favorite team, but because you might have some money on that game. And you can do that with FanDuel. They're sponsoring today's show, and they're America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. So I know that you've been thinking about joining FanDuel. Now's the best time to do that. The app is really easy to use. There's a whole lot of betting options that will be explained on the app: spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, get all of the details, learn about everything that you need to learn about. You have a $5 money line bet, you can win $150, and who doesn't need $150? I do.
That's like what is that? Like a 300% profit or something like that? Like, let's go.
Right, let's go. I'm down, especially after Christmas, right? You're buying a bunch of gifts. You can maybe recoup some of the resource that
your present broke me this Christmas.
Yeah, that ornament was yeah. If that was broke you, then we got to talk. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and FanDuel is the official betting partner of the NFL.
It's a Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Hey, Everydayers, Locked On, as you know, has launched the very first 24/7 national sports streaming channel on YouTube. You can head on over to Locked On Sports Today. They're here for you, covering the top stories of the day around the sports world 24/7 with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL. All of it is there for you. So head on over to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and be part of the very first 24/7 national sports streaming channel.
2 other names that have been mentioned in trade rumors for the Halos are Taylor Ward and Mickey Moniak. Let me talk about Taylor Ward for a moment, but John, I'm going to need your help here. Ken Rosenthal says that Mickey Moniak, of course, Taylor Ward was hit in the face by Alex Manoah. I'm going to need you to say hit in the face in your most exasperated Frisch voice. You know what I'm looking for? You know what I'm looking for?
Yeah, Taylor Ward got hit in the face.
There it is.
If you're watching on the video side, you can see the head bob, the classic Frisch head bob. Yeah, of course, Taylor Ward's heating up in the middle of the summer and gets hit in the face.
That was our response. That was our nephew's response. That was everybody's response, right? And that was in July. And then he missed the rest of the year with facial fractures. His offensive numbers declined a bit from his 2022 breakout season, but teams really like the fact that he has 3 years of control. So that's what Ken Rosenthal says. What do the Super Halo brothers say, Johnny?
Mike, the Super Halo bros say that Ward started out the season struggling a bit. He definitely was not off to the hot start that he was in 2022, but his numbers did get progressively better before he ended up missing the rest of the season after the facial fracture. There you go. Do it one more time for you. If we could get Frisch bobbleheads, Halo Bros bobbleheads, I think that'd be great.
Mine would topple over because my head's huge.
Fell off the desk again. Listen, in March and April, his average was down in the 200 range, 208. In May, he got up to 261. And then in June, he bat 258. And then in July, Mike, he did get a lot of playing time in July. I think it was the end of the month where he got hit in the face. He had a 304 batting average in July. And then, of course, his on-base percentage, this is another area where Ward was really struggling, wasn't being as patient as he was in 22. And I think, again, that's why he didn't start out as hot as he did the season before, because he was being really patient. He had a really great eye at the plate, and he wasn't swinging at stuff out of the zone. Saw a lot more of that in 2023, but his on-base percentage in the first part of the season was 320. Remember that a 300 average, a 400 on base, and a 500 slugging is like, that's where you want to be. The way you feel as a fan about a guy who hits 300 for his batting average is how you want to feel about a 400 on base and a 500 slugging.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was 424 in the month of July, his on-base percentage. Then in terms of slugging, he was hitting 311 in terms of slugging in March and April. He got a 409 in the months of May and June. Both of those months, actually, he was slugging 409. Mike, he had a 623 slugging in July. He's always been the safe outfielder. You and I have mentioned that many, many times in the past, and he's going to make the plays that every outfielder should make and needs to make. It's not going to be anything fancy. You're not going to see him making any top 10 highlights on ESPN or anything like that, albeit for that one play where I think he jumped over the wall. Was that last season, the short wall in left field?
Yep.
And then the Angels ended up losing that game anyway. But that's neither here nor there. Taylor Ward has a surplus value, get this, Mike, of 23.2.
Wow.
According to baseball trade values. Is that realistic? Does that seem right to you or wrong to you? It doesn't sit well with me. That seems too high.
It does seem a bit high for Taylor Ward, but looking at how many years he's still under control and what his potential could be, the fact that he can play right and left field and possibly even some center field, I think they're putting his abilities and his agility all into the same category. I wonder, John, is there a scenario where Ward, Moniak, Adele, and Trout are all of the outfielders, and we see Ward maybe more at DH because he's coming off of this facial fracture?
I would say just because Adele and definitely Moniak have proven to be the better defensive outfielders.
Yeah.
Even Adele last year, the guy was playing toward the end of the season, all three outfield positions. I think his defense is going to be really great this season. I think that the conversation around Joe Adele's defense is going to be put behind us this season. Potentially you could see Ward DH, or perhaps they might want to get Adele or Moniak in that DH spot if they want to get them off their feet. Mike, honestly, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of Ohtani not coming back to the Angels is having the designated hitter again.
For sure.
Because as Rendon and Trout get older, you're going to want that more. And then even with a guy like Taylor Ward, who's fine in the outfield, you really have your best outfield of Adele, Moniak, and Trout out there. Now, I have a question for you. If the Angels trade Ward and get a starting pitcher in return, or maybe he's part of a package kind of like Rengifo, does that make a Cody Bellinger signing more like palatable or tolerable to you?
Yeah, it does. And the reason why is because of what I just read recently about his stats. Like, I know that some of the expected stuff was not what we would hope for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of outperformed a lot of what was expected of him, and he's probably going to have some regression. But I think that his left-handed bat in this lineup brings potentially 30, maybe even 40 home runs. I just think of that like big wall in right field, and I think of Garrett Anderson, who is probably really frustrated that they lowered the home run.
Yeah.
Right? They lowered the home run wall. And so I could see Bellinger come in and be a great middle of the lineup type of guy. I know that there's hesitations about, like, again, the stats and the expected stats and his regression. But if they do trade Ward and he's a part of a package to get a quality starting pitcher for us, then yeah, it would make sense to go and fill that role with a Bellinger, because at this point, what are you left with? Well, you have Adele and you have Moniak and you have Trout. And I think that you would want another big bat. Not that Ward is the big bat, but Ward is a bat that can be a threat, especially when he's hot. I believe he was leading the league in RBIs in the month of July. I think
that's right. He was.
So the guy was crushing it that month. And so he can come through and be clutch when necessary. So I would be willing to part with Ward, and I would also be willing to see the Angels sign Bellinger if they do make that trade for a starting pitcher.
Mickey Moniak is another one getting a lot of attention. According to Ken Rosenthal, the value of a left-handed hitter who can play center field was demonstrated by the Giants' recent signing of free agent Jung-Hoo Lee to a 6-year, $113 million deal. Moniak, who had 14 home runs and an 802 OPS in 323 plate appearances last season, is under control for 4 more seasons. So that's what Ken Rosenthal says. Mike, what do the Super Halo Bros say about Mickey Moniak?
Mickey proved to be incredibly reliable in center field while Trout was out for the year. And if Trout is going to DH, Johnny, I think Moniak would definitely be a great fill-in in center field. And I know he had a couple of miscues. He had that game against the White Sox where the ball dropped in front of him, right? And so it was really frustrating. But then he came back and got hits. And,
for as many miscues as he had some incredible over-the-wall catches and stuff like that. Yeah,
the guy is a high-risk, high-reward type of guy.
The opposite of Taylor Ward.
He is. He is. And his splits are what's really the biggest issue for him. Against righties, he had a 294 batting average and an 866 OPS. Against lefties, 222 batting average and a 548 OPS. So because of that, Johnny, 2 questions here. Would you be willing to part with Moniak? And if you aren't willing to part with him, would you platoon him with Joe Adele?
I would want to keep him, and I'd rather him platoon with Joe Adele in righty-lefty splits. Mike, like I've been saying since the offseason began, no expectations, and this is the year to assess what you've got. And if you've got a lefty in Mickey Moniak working with somebody like Johnny Washington, who helped another lefty last season in Cody Bellinger, perhaps there's something there. Perhaps you can wait it out and see how Mickey Moniak performs against lefties. And if it's not working out, then you have that option to platoon him with a Taylor Ward or a Joe Adele. I think that you keep Moniak on this team, especially with the years of control that he has. And Mike, his clutch stats are actually really impressive as well. So for Mickey Moniak to have that, I know you can't measure clutch in terms of this guy's clutch in all situations, but to come through in a big moment, man, he did a lot of that last season. And I would be interested and patient with him enough to see if that's something he can replicate in 2024.
A name that is interesting and maybe even intriguing for Angel fans and baseball fans that has been discussed in trade rumors is Matt Thaiss. And I know that there's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to Thaiss. Rosenthal said that catchers obviously are always in demand, and Thaiss is under club control for 4 more seasons, Johnny. Wow. And he's a left-handed hitter who had a 745 OPS before the All-Star break last season. And then he did fall off in the second half with a 504 OPS. Now, that might be because he's playing every day and he hasn't played every day. Yeah, and Ohapi will be back. And so there could be a nice platoon there. But we're talking about his trade potential. So that's what Rosenthal said. What do the Super Halo brothers say, Johnny?
Mike, honestly, he's got some value as a backup catcher, and he can play first base as well. And he can even play some third base when you really need him to.
Yeah, so he throws right-handed. Yep.
Yeah, so there's plenty of options there for Thaiss in the infield, especially as the backup catcher to Logan Ohapi, which is the role that I think he was meant to play last season. I know Stassi was going to back up Ohapi. Well, now Stassi's in Chicago with the White Sox, and Thaiss has, split that time between him and Chad Wallach. So I'm sure we'll see Ohapi behind the dish more than Thaiss. But again, I think that he brings a lot of value to the table. here's some things I didn't realize about him in terms of his catching ability. Now, I know that you and I complained about his rainbow throws back to the pitcher. And with somebody like Ron Washington watching that, he's going to say, and eliminate that immediately.
Yeah.
But here's what's really interesting about him. He had, according to StatCast, 3 blocks above average behind the plate. So he's moving around. He's keeping things from getting past him. That goes right hand in hand with Martin Maldonado, remember him, and Dodgers catcher Will Smith.
Yeah.
So 3 blocks above average is actually pretty good for Matt Thaiss. He had a -1 catcher framing run. So think how well a catcher steals a strike for his pitcher, and then there's a run value attached to that. So Thaiss sat at -1, which might sound bad, but then you hear this, that D-backs catcher Gabriel Moreno and had a -1 catcher framing runs, and then that's actually better than Will Smith of the Dodgers. He was actually below -1. Finally, the pop time at 1.98 seconds goes right in line with Salvador Perez, Kyle Higashioka, and Alejandro Kirk. So Thaiss has got one of the better pop times in terms of catchers around the league. Finally, he had a 0, basically league average.
Yeah.
Not good, not bad, making all the plays he was supposed to. In catchers caught stealing above average, he's got a 0 there. So that means he was right in line, making the throws he was supposed to and getting guys out the way he should. And another catcher with a 0 caught stealing above average, you might have heard of him, Adley Rutschman.
Yep.
So Thaiss is right in line with him as well. So those are things about his catching that we've talked about. Mike, what about his swing and his left-handed bat?
Yeah, we've talked about how he has this big loopy swing, and if the ball is in his zone, he's going to make huge contact, right? But if the ball's not in his zone, it doesn't seem like he's going to hit it at all. He's going to swing over it or he's going to swing under it. He has a similar swing to Cody Bellinger. It feels kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
And he hits the ball really hard when he makes contact. He had under 70% contact percentage. And so, gosh, a left-handed bat who can catch and play first and maybe play some third for you, I can see why he's valuable. Johnny, the big question, though, is that the Angels have brought on a couple of catchers in the minor leagues, Chad Wallach and Mejia. So because of that, do they trade Thaiss and hit their depth when it comes to catcher, or do they keep Thaiss and maybe trade other guys like Rengifo or Ward or Moniak?
It really comes down to the right deal for Matt Thaiss, because 4 years of control for a decent catcher who might not hit a whole bunch is a really good incentive for the Angels to trade him away. I would hate to lose a catcher spot and really get more shallow at catching depth, because with Mejia and Wallach waiting in the minors and you're going to roll with O'Hoppe and Thaiss in the majors, I think that bumps Wallach back up as the backup catcher, which is fine. He's not a terrible catcher, but it makes you think. The big question for me is, can Thaiss improve? Because really, wasn't last season his first truly real full season?
He hasn't really had any
leagues.
opportunities, right? And so last year was the first time to get opportunities. And if I could just speak for some of our Locked On Everydayers, when they think about him being traded, there was somebody that mentioned like he's going to become the Napoli of the modern era for us. I get, right? We traded Napoli and he went away, and then we got Vernon Wells, right? It was a terrible trade.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's some whiplash that we have from that situation. But continue with your thought.
Well, I just think, and maybe this is a question for you. Is there any hope that, considering the Angels have Johnny Washington, who helped Bellinger with his big loopy left-handed swing last year, is there any hope for Thaiss this season that he can be better at the plate? Because that really seems to be the part of his game that's missing, Mike. Because when you consider he can play first, he can catch, and maybe even play some third if you need him to, it starts to make me think that he actually is pretty valuable.
Yeah.
It's all about his approach at the plate. Do you think that that's something you're willing to be patient with and see if he can improve there?
I would say yes for two reasons. One, last year he was really learning the position in the major leagues. I know he tried it in the minor leagues, but really he got thrown into this because of injuries and
two
so
catcher's interferences that
right. And
cost
so
him the
he's
game.
he's figuring this out, right? But second, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow on tomorrow's show. One of our Locked On Everydayers made a good point. I think that this coaching staff adds like 5 WAR to this team. And honestly, I think when it comes to Matt Thaiss, I think Johnny Washington can be somebody that will help him to drastically improve at the plate. So a part of me says keep him because I think that he's somebody that we could really utilize as a backup catcher. I get he's a backup catcher and you can probably find another good backup catcher like Wallach, but because he's still got 4 years of control, there might be a lot of growing that he can do in those 4 years with the Halos.
When you consider that Ohapi could get more hitting time using the DH as well, you're going to want somebody like Matt Thaiss at the plate and behind the dish as well. So, you know what? Again, no expectations for me. This is the year where you assess what you have. Do it with Matt Thaiss this season and see what you have in him. See if you can get him to improve at the plate and see if he's going to be a contributing factor to the Halos next season.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Everydayers, remember that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On like John and I, plus our national shows covering every league. You can go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, find today's show, and get in our comments and hit that like button while you're here because it's the best way to reach us in the comment section of YouTube below. Also, don't forget to vote for us in the 2024 Sports Podcast Awards. That link is in the episode description for you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Friday's show?
The Zips projections are out, and they try to predict what the teams will do using past data, and then they want to talk about the future. And the Halos are a part of this, and tomorrow you and I are going to share about these projections, and we're going to talk about why some are good and some are concerning, and that's tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you right back here for more Locked On Angels tomorrow. Zips!
Zips. Can you change your name? That's a dumb name.